of the month of April, and if you're new here, hello there. I'm doing letter and card or anything stationery for the entire month of April, because if you haven't watched my videos, my previous videos yet, this month is letter writing month. So everyone is encouraged to write letters, greeting cards, or send out postcards to your loved one and friends. So this week is probably my most favorite among all the handmade stationeries I've done for the previous weeks, because we are going to make postcards. And why I like postcards is because I think most of the simplest stationery that you can make, although you can actually go overboard with it. And one thing that I really like about this is if you send it to any local post office, it's the cheapest one. So if you're from the Philippines, it will probably just cost you 15 pesos to 20 pesos. I think I just have to update the prices for our Philippine post office. But as you can see, for 15 pesos, you're gonna send out a very personalized, make someone very happy for just 15 pesos, right? So without any chit-chatting, let's start making our postcards. So let's talk about our supplies or our materials that we will be using for our handmade postcards. All right, so the first thing is our paper. Now, you can find a postcard size paper in your local bookstores. Now, this one are watercolor papers that are sized into a postcard size. So basically, a postcard size is around 4 by 6 inches or 5 by 7. So that's basically the standard size for postcards. Now, you can find this brand, or there's also one from Arches, Arche. If you call it French, it's Arche. So anyway, those are watercolor papers. Now, if you can't find these kind of papers, you can just cut your own using your usual paper size. So this one is one of my favorite from iFX. So just make sure that you will buy a paper that is thick. So the same paper that you will be using for greeting card. Much better if you can find a thicker one. So this one is about 250 GSM. So if you can find more than that, around 280 or 300, then that's pretty much the ideal paper thickness for your postcards. Why? Because you will be sending your postcards naked. So basically, there's no envelope, there's no other covering for your postcards. So if you send out a thicker paper, then your postcard is quite safe from all the folds and other things. However, if thick paper is not accessible, don't stop yourself from sending one because you just have a thin one. So just like this one, I have thin papers. Basically, it will also vary from what kind of handmade project or handmade postcards that you will be making. So if you'll be making a lot of layers on your postcards, then pretty much you're gonna need a thicker paper. But if you're gonna do a simple one, just text and probably a drawing, a thin paper will do actually. Now, one thing about watercolor paper, they are very convenient because they are already cut into a postcard size. Also, they are very thick. However, this is a bit costly. So I forgot how much this costs, but let's just say this is around about 100 plus for about 12 pieces. But this one is a sampler from Fabriano, so they have different types of watercolor paper and different thickness. But this is really good because the thinness is only at 200, and you can have like at most 640 GSM. So can you imagine how thick that is? But this is very costly unless you really want that. So if budget is a bit a concern, then this one will do, because this is just around 31 pesos, 31.50, and you get 10 pieces of this, and you can make about 4 in 1 page, or 2 if you want the 5 by 7 inches. So that's what you'll need for the paper. Oh, also I have this. It's a different kind of paper. This is called Polaris, or there's also called Zanzibar. So these are actually specialty paper. So you can find this kind of paper for wedding invitations. So we like using it because it's thick, and plus there's a bit of a glitter on it. And then some of the papers also smells really good. So if you can find papers like that, then that's also a bonus. All right, so that's about the paper. And now let's talk about the materials that we will be using to decorate your postcards. I'll be doing 3 projects, just like my usual or my previous videos for the Handmade Stationery. So we will be using or needing Instax. So if you have the mini Instax film, whether it's a camera, a printer, then this will do. If you have the square one, that will also do. I did this like long time ago, like really few years ago. So I took some of my photos and then I put it in a Polaroid or a Polaroid size, because back then the square Instax is not yet available, and I was really into Polaroids. Since I can't find one and it's a bit expensive, so I made my own one, and I'm thinking of adding this also in my shop. So anyway, if you don't have this or this, you can just cut out any photos. It would be best if you just send out scenery, food maybe, or your favorite thing to do, because I'll share later what's the purpose of this one. The next one is one of my favorite tools so far, rubber stamps and ink pad. Now we will also be needing watercolor brush, and your water, and also a palette. And then you will be we will be using pressed flowers. So if you watched my video last week, the handmade greeting cards, so I was kind of interested with pressed flowers, and I've thought of doing this also for the postcards. And then we will also be needing a Mod Podge. If you don't have this, wet glue is perfectly fine. Now we will be needing our usual cutting materials. So you'll need a ruler, cutter, scissors, and a cutting mat. Glue as well. And if you need pencil or pens, that's up to you. Alright, so those are basically the materials that we will be needing. So now let's get into our first project. Alright, so let's make our first handmade postcard. So I'll be using this size. So this is around 7 by 4.25. Now, like I said, 4 by 6 and 5 by 7 inches is the standard size for postcard. Now, the nice thing about postcard, since you won't be putting it in an envelope, you can use whatever size that you have. So if you have scrap papers and yet it doesn't fit the 4 by 6 and the 5 by 7, just like this one, it's 7 inches pretty much, 6.75. So that's fine. However, there's a limit to it. So the smallest that you can get is probably if you cut this into 4, and the biggest size that you can get is 1/2 of this, and this one is around 8.5 by 11 inches size. So if you're using A4 is a bit taller or longer than this but shorter in width. So it's pretty much the same. You can cut it into 4 or cut it into half, but not smaller than 1/4 size and not bigger than 1/2 size. Why? Because smaller than 4x6, let's just say something like this, it's a bit too small, so your postcard might get lost. And if you're gonna give a postcard that is way bigger than this, so let's just say cut it here like a square form or just bigger than half of this, I think post office won't allow it already, or they will not consider it as a postcard rate. So I'm not sure about that, but that's just one thing I know. Don't go beyond bigger than half of this and not smaller than the 1/4 of this. Okay, all right, so with this one I'll be using not so thick paper. So this is pretty much just around 140 GSM. So as you can see, it's very thin, but it's just fine because my first postcard design won't be design heavy. So we will be needing the Instax, or if you don't have Instax, a photo printed is actually fine. Now a sticker, photo sticker is also nice. It's convenient. Okay, so I'll be using Instax print or this one. Now if you don't have this, your usual photos will do fine. The smallest that you can get, I think you have 2R. So if you used to have the studio photos, that will the size of that is actually perfect. But if you have the 4R photos or the 5R, and if you can print in your home, that's wonderful. Just cut your photos into half. We don't need the entire size of the 4R or 5R. But if you have a postcard paper that fits in a 4R, so let's say you have a 4R paper and you want to send that out, you can actually cut or trim the edges just so you can make a smaller photo and layer it on your postcard. Here's one tip about using photos in your postcards. Now, I wouldn't really suggest you use a photo with your face or anyone in your family, or probably the one you're sending it to. So if let's say you have a photo of let's just say I'm gonna send it to my sister. So if let's say I have a photo of us from the previous years and I want to send it to her because it reminds me of this and that. Now I wouldn't really suggest you do that because, like I said, you'll be sending postcard naked, so there's no envelope to it. So if you want to use photos with your faces, I would suggest you do it in a greeting card instead. Now why? Because with all the privacy issues and things like that, it's just security, for security purposes. So the best photos that I can suggest are, like, let's say with me, I like sending out from my travels. So I like taking photos of the places I've been to. If not, you can send out food, maybe your favorite food at the moment, or your favorite food that you share it with to the one you're gonna send the postcard to. Just be mindful of your face or anyone that might actually lead to something else. All right, so this one is pretty easy, no brainer at all, but I think the challenging part here is what photo to use, because there's so many photos that you want to send out to, right? What we're gonna do here is, so I'm gonna use this photo, and since it won't fit this way, I'm just gonna use it this way. Now there's no rule when it comes to postcards. You can use it, you can actually do it in a landscape form or in a portrait form, so it doesn't really matter Just make sure though, if you're using extra things, or if you're decorating your postcard, just make sure you stick everything properly. Otherwise, it might get lost, it might fall off, it might actually damage other packages. Post office might not actually accept it. So just to be on the safe side, stick everything properly and try not to add so many embellishments that will protrude. So make it flat. All right, so I'm just gonna stick it here, and I'm gonna add a rubber stamp using the letter rubber stamps, and I'm gonna write, "I wish you were here." So just like I said, this one is really straightforward, nothing fancy. I wish you. Okay, so I'm gonna do this in 2 lines. If you have a sticker or a rubber stamp that has already a coat, then by all means that will save you a lot of time. Because I like this one because it looks like a typewriter. Or yeah, just speaking of it, if you do have a typewriter, you can actually do this already. Type in your title, and then type in your title first before you add in your photo, because remember, if you're using a typewriter, you're gonna bend, fold, or curve the paper, so you don't want the photo to fold as well or to bend. You can also stamp this on a piece of paper if you don't want to ruin your postcard, and then just stick your the card or the paper that you stamp it on this side. So there are so many possibilities. And then I'm gonna write where this is. Now, you know what I like doing this kind of postcards. It also showcases how beautiful Philippines is. And they might actually know, or if they haven't heard of Philippines, or they're not familiar with the Philippines, then they would know we have a lot of beaches, beautiful beaches here. So that's one good thing about this one. All right, so we're just done with our first project. If you're using mini Instax film, you can do it so just like this one, and then you can stamp your title here, just like adding a title or something that tells me why I'm sending this. So if let's say you're sending out a food to your recipient, then you can probably say, your title can also mean I wish we were eating this together. So yeah, I think this is the most simplest among all the project, or among these 3 postcards, but this one is actually very simple and on point. For our second handmade postcard, we will be using watercolor set, watercolor brush, a water, and a watercolor paper. Now, I would really suggest you'd use a watercolor paper, but if this is not available, just use a little bit thicker than your usual cardstock. So this one kind of need a bit of lettering skills, but don't be pressure about it, and don't stop yourself from trying. So your usual handwriting will definitely do. Now, if you're not comfortable with watercolor and you're more comfortable with a pen, a simple handwriting such as this will do. I'm gonna share with you later what are your other options. Now, I like using watercolor because I want to do color combination. Okay, so if you're not comfortable with lettering, you can do something like this. So I just use my own handwriting using a pen. I'm using a drawing pen, but if you don't have this as well, just make sure you use a thicker one than your usual ballpoint. So I would suggest a sign pen, fountain pen, a thin marker like the Sharpie that has a very thin point, and this will actually do. So simple as that. So that's our project, or that's our handmade postcard number 2. For our postcard number 3, I will be using pressed flowers. Now, if you've seen my previous video or just my video last week, I was kinda crazy over pressed flowers. I think I kinda like to use this as well in postcard. Now, this is also very simple, just like my usual projects. So I'm just gonna use another postcard size paper. I'll be using the specialty one that has the glitter on it, but this is not necessary at all. So this one, I also like this idea because this will actually serve also like as an art print for your recipient. They can also put this on a frame and use it or put it on their wall. Okay, so what we're aiming here is a flat, super flat pressed flowers. If you have a better flower that flat perfectly, then that is perfect. Okay, so I want to use this one. Just gonna glue it on. If you have flowers that has more colors, that is actually nice. Okay, this is one good example that you really need to stick everything properly, because pressed flowers is under debatable, I guess, if you send this in your post office, because they might actually not accept this one, but some may actually do. This is how you properly seal your pressed flower. Now, you can actually use a plastic or a clear plastic to seal this one, just like this. Add double-sided on the side, or a packaging tape that will fit this one. I want this to be used as an art print, so I'm just gonna note that at the back. And because of that, I don't wanna add the clear tape on top. So instead, I'm gonna use a Mod Podge, or if you don't have this, the usual clear glue will do. I would also suggest that you put a lot of layers on top. So once this dry, do this again for about 2 or 3 times. So I want to add a little title on that. That's our third handmade postcard. As easy as that. And these are the handmade postcard that we just did. Now I added curve here using a curve puncher, just so to give a different edge for your postcard. This can also serve as an art print, just like this one, or they can just stick it on their wall. Now, what I really like about this too is, of course, this is a postcard. So if someone is actually holding this, like especially the postman, they might actually just read this one, and who knows, they might need a reminder or a positive affirmation maybe, and you just did not send or make someone happy, which is your recipient, but also the one sending this to. Now that you have your handmade postcards ready, how do we turn them into a postcards? Because right now, since we just decorated the front and the backs are empty, they are just like a note card, or they can also be used as a tag maybe, or an art print. However, our aim is to make this as a postcard. So this is what we did, is basically just the front of the postcard. Now I have here a template of my postcard. So I have this and this one too. So I actually have this in the shop. It's a template for postcards. So at the back is already a postcard template, and all you have to do is do something at the front. So just like this one. Alright, so basically what you do with this handmade postcard that we just did is, if you flip your postcard at the back, this is where you will put all the details. So a postcard consists of just few things at the back. So here on your right side is where you will put the recipient's name and address. And this part on the left side is where you will put your note and your name. Okay, so in general, you don't really put the name and address of the sender. All you have to do is just sign here, just like when you write a note or anything and you say love or from, on the lower right side of your note, right? So that's just where the recipient knows who it came from. Other than that, this is where you will place your stamp. So technically, post office wouldn't mind whether you cover your stamp up to here or on this side. What you should make sure is your address or your recipient's address and name is very clear and won't be covered with your stamp. So that's it. So if, let's say, this postcard is in a portrait format, it doesn't matter whether you wanna do it this way or this way. It doesn't matter. So what matters here is the right side is where the address is, and the right side, the left side is where your note is. So that's it. It's not the same as sending a letter or a card, because when you send a letter or a card, you basically put your own information at the back of the envelope. That's pretty much the basic part of sending your or making this babies as postcard. I want to share with you the postcards that I have in the shop, which were my own design. So this one was from my travels before. So these are mainly from Mindanao. So I like taking photos before and then I turn them into postcards. And then this one, since I really like vintage, so this one has a different design, 3 different designs, and this one too has, I think, 4 different photos. So these are the 2 of them. So as you can, so if you notice, I really like making postcards. These are one of my favorite stationeries because it's easy, it's fun, but it's also on point. It gives it brightens someone's day, and it costs you very cheap. So I hope this project or this handmade stationery inspired you to make your own handmade card or handmade postcard, because it's very easy. Now I would understand if you don't really have much time to sit down and make your own card. So if you don't have one, if you don't have the time, just by all means feel free to buy from local shops you're not only supporting or not you're not only making someone happy by writing a letter to someone, but you're also supporting small businesses just like mine. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to see, or I would love to know what you think about this, if you love sending postcards, or if you prefer greeting card or sending a letter. I would love to know about them. So if you have questions as well, please don't hesitate to write them down, and I'll try my best to answer them for you. All right, see you again on my next video, and have a great weekend, guys. Bye.